plant once, and harvest for generations. It sounds almost impossible, but some food-producing trees and shrubs can live for decades, and a few can keep feeding families for more than a century. In this video, we are looking at 10 long-living food plants that can turn a normal backyard into a lasting food system. They save money, they reduce dependence on the grocery store, and most importantly, they create something your children, and even their children, may still benefit from. So if you want to build real food security, start with these plants. And make sure you stay until number 7, because that tree may completely change the way you think about drought, gardening, and survival food. Number 1. Mulberry. The fruit the grocery store cannot handle. Mulberries are one of the most underrated fruits in the homestead world. You rarely see them in supermarkets, not because they are not valuable, but because they are too soft and fragile for shipping. They bruise easily. They spoil quickly. And that is exactly what makes them perfect for your own backyard. While commercial farms focus on fruit that can survive trucks, warehouses, and shelves, you can grow a fruit that is sweet, productive, and deeply useful. A mature mulberry tree can produce heavy summer harvests, often dozens of pounds of berries in a season. Even better, mulberries usually start producing faster than many common fruit trees. In good conditions, they may begin fruiting within 3 to 5 years. They also tolerate poor soil, dry weather, and very little attention. For a beginner, this is a powerful tree. You do not need a perfect orchard. You need one strong, forgiving plant that gives back every year. Mulberry is that plant. Number 2. Hazelnut. The small tree with serious survival value. Most fruit trees give you sweetness, water, and vitamins. That is useful. But hazelnuts give you something even harder to replace in a long-term food system: dense calories, healthy fats, and plant-based protein. That is why they matter. When people think about survival food, they often think about jars, grains, and canned goods. But a living source of fat and calories is far more powerful. 1 pound of hazelnuts can contain around 2,800 calories. So if a mature hazelnut shrub produces even 20 to 30 pounds of nuts in a good year, that is a serious amount of stored energy growing right outside your home. Hazelnuts also have another advantage. They store well. Left in their shells and kept in a cool, dry place, they can remain usable for many months, often close to a year. That makes them very different from soft fruit, which must be eaten, dried, frozen, or processed quickly. They are also relatively fast for a nut crop. Many hazelnuts can begin producing in about 3 to 5 years. But there is one important detail. Most hazelnuts need cross-pollination, so planting at least 2 compatible varieties gives you a much better harvest. This is not just a tree. It is a quiet food insurance policy. Small space, high nutrition, long-term security. Number 3. Fig trees. The ancient tree of abundance. Figs have fed people for thousands of years, and there is a simple reason they appear again and again in old stories, gardens, and farming traditions. They produce a lot of food with very little drama. A mature fig tree can give a family a large harvest every year, sometimes well over 100 pounds of fruit when the tree is healthy and established. And unlike many delicate fruit trees, figs can handle heat, dry soil, rocky ground, and less than perfect conditions. That is why they became so important in warm regions. They were not just a sweet treat. They were reliable food. Fresh figs are soft, rich, and full of natural sugar. But the real long-term value comes when you dry them. Dried figs become compact, sweet, and energy-dense. They can be stored for months and used like a natural snack when fresh food is harder to find. For families trying to build food security, that matters. Another reason figs are powerful is speed. Many fig trees can start producing within 2 to 3 years, especially when grown from cuttings. That means you do not have to wait a decade to see results. If you feel late to self-sufficiency, figs are one of the fastest ways to begin. One small cutting can become a tree that feeds your family season after season. Number 4. Apple trees. The cold climate survival classic. Apples may feel ordinary because we see them everywhere. But that is exactly why people forget how powerful they really are. For centuries, apples were one of the most important foods for families living through long winters. They were easy to grow in cooler regions. They could be eaten fresh. They could be dried, cooked, pressed into cider, or stored in cellars for months. A mature apple tree can produce a huge amount of food every year. Depending on the variety, age, and growing conditions, one strong tree may provide hundreds of pounds of fruit in a good season. That is not just a snack tree. That is a serious food system. The real strength of apples is flexibility. Some varieties are best for fresh eating. Some are better for baking. Some are chosen specifically because they store well in cool, dark places. Before refrigerators and global shipping, this mattered deeply. A family that stored apples properly could keep fruit available long after the growing season ended. Apple trees do require more patience than figs or mulberries. Many take several years to reach full production, and most need another compatible apple variety nearby for good pollination. But once established, they can keep producing for decades. If you live in a temperate or cold region, planting apples is not just about growing fruit. It is about building a dependable winter food reserve that returns every single year. Number 5. Persimmon, the candy tree that arrives when the garden is almost finished. Most fruit trees give their best harvest in summer or early autumn. Persimmon is different. It often ripens late, just when many other crops are disappearing and the cold season is beginning. That timing makes it incredibly valuable for a self-sufficient backyard. When the garden looks tired, the leaves are falling, and fresh fruit becomes harder to find, a persimmon tree can still be holding bright orange fruit on its branches. A mature tree can produce a generous harvest, sometimes hundreds of pounds in a strong year, depending on variety and climate. The fruit is rich in natural sugar, soft when fully ripe, and packed with useful nutrients like vitamin A, vitamin C, and fiber. But the real survival advantage is preservation. Persimmons dry beautifully. As they lose moisture, their sweetness becomes concentrated, and the texture can turn chewy and rich, almost like a natural candy. In many traditional food cultures, dried persimmons were kept as a winter food because they were light, sweet, and easy to store. They could provide quick energy when fresh food was limited. Persimmon trees are also surprisingly low maintenance. Once established, many varieties handle pests and diseases better than more delicate fruit trees. They usually take several years to begin producing, often around 4 to 6 years, but after that, they can become a dependable part of your yearly harvest. Planting persimmon is like planting a late-season safety net. When the rest of the garden slows down, this tree is still feeding you. Number 6. Chestnut trees, the bread tree of the old world. For many people today, nuts mean fat. Walnuts, pecans, almonds, and hazelnuts are rich, oily, and calorie-dense. But chestnuts are different. Chestnuts are closer to a grain crop growing on a tree. They are lower in fat and much higher in starch, which is why many communities once treated them almost like bread, potatoes, or flour. A mature chestnut tree can produce a large harvest of filling nuts each year. In the right conditions, that harvest can become a serious source of carbohydrates for a family. You can roast chestnuts. You can boil them. You can dry them. And most importantly, you can grind them into flour for simple breads, cakes, porridge, or thickening soups. That is why chestnut forests were so important in parts of Europe and Asia, especially in mountain areas where wheat was difficult to grow. They were not luxury food. They were survival food. Chestnuts do take patience. Many trees need several years before they begin producing well. But once established, they can live and feed people for generations. With suitable disease-resistant varieties, a chestnut tree is more than a crop. It is a long-term carbohydrate system growing quietly above your head. Number 7. Carob trees, the drought-proof tree with chocolate-like pods. This is the tree that can completely change the way you think about survival gardening. Because while many fruit trees struggle in heat, dry soil, and long periods without rain, carob trees are built for harsh conditions. They are native to the Mediterranean region, where summers can be hot, rocky, and unforgiving. Instead of demanding perfect soil and constant watering, carob can survive in places where many common fruit trees would fail. The food comes from long brown pods. When ripe, these pods become naturally sweet and can be eaten, dried, or ground into a powder often used as a cocoa substitute. Carob does not taste exactly like chocolate, but it gives a deep, sweet flavor that makes it valuable in baking, drinks, and simple survival foods. The biggest advantage is storage. Carob pods are naturally low in moisture, so they can keep for a very long time in a cool, dry place with almost no processing. That means you are not racing against drought the way you are with soft fruit. A mature carob tree can produce a heavy harvest, sometimes hundreds of pounds of pods in a good year. It does take patience, often several years before serious production begins. But once established, it becomes a low-maintenance source of sweetness, calories, and resilience. In dry climates, carob is not just useful. It is strategic. Number 8. Walnut trees. The black gold of a long-term homestead. If chestnuts are the bread tree, walnuts are the fat reserve. And in any self-sufficient food system, fat is one of the hardest nutrients to produce consistently. Vegetables are important. Fruit is important. But calories from healthy fats can make the difference between simply eating and actually staying nourished. A mature walnut tree can produce a valuable yearly harvest of nuts, often dozens of pounds when conditions are right. Those nuts are rich in energy, plant-based protein, and healthy fats, including omega-3 fatty acids. That makes walnuts especially useful when meat, dairy, or cooking oils are limited. They also come with natural packaging. The hard shell protects the nut inside, helping it store much longer than soft fruit without needing refrigeration. Kept dry and cool, walnuts can remain useful for many months. But the value of walnut trees goes beyond food. Walnut wood is strong, beautiful, and highly prized for furniture, tools, and fine woodworking. So when you plant one, you are growing nutrition now and potential timber value for the future. Walnut trees require patience. They may take years before producing well. But once established, they can feed a family for generations. Number 9. Oak trees. The ancient calorie factory most people ignore. Today, many people see oak trees as shade trees, park trees, or timber trees. But for much of human history, oaks were also food trees. Their acorns helped feed people, animals, and entire communities long before modern grocery stores existed. A mature oak can drop a massive amount of acorns in a strong year. And although most people assume acorns are only for wildlife, they can become a useful human food when prepared correctly. The key issue is tannins. Many acorns taste bitter because they contain tannins, but those tannins can be reduced through leaching with water. After that process, acorns can be dried and ground into flour. That flour can be used for simple breads, porridge, pancakes, or thickened foods. It is not fast food. It is old food, slow, practical, and deeply connected to survival. Oak trees also have one of the biggest advantages of any tree on this list: resilience. They can handle storms, drought, poor conditions, pests, and long years of neglect far better than many orchard trees. They are not quick. An oak may take decades before it reaches heavy production. But once it does, it can keep producing for centuries. When you plant an oak, you are not planting for next summer. You are planting a food system for a future you may never fully see, but your family may still depend on. Number 10. Pecan tree. The calorie king of the backyard. A pecan tree is not just a beautiful giant. It is a long-term food machine. When fully mature and growing in the right climate, one pecan tree can produce a very large harvest of nuts year after year. Those nuts are rich in calories, healthy fats, and plant-based protein, which makes them extremely valuable in any survival-focused food system. Soft fruit gives you quick sugar. Leafy greens give you vitamins. But pecans give you stored energy. That matters when food prices rise, supply chains break down, or winter limits what you can grow. Another major advantage is shelf life. Pecans are protected by a hard shell, which helps preserve the nut inside. When kept dry, cool, and properly stored, they can last for many months, and sometimes much longer than most fresh foods. That is one reason pecans were valuable to indigenous communities in North America. They were energy-dense, portable, and easier to carry than many other food sources. Pecan trees do not reward impatience. They often take 7 to 10 years before they begin producing meaningful harvests. But once they are established, they can keep producing for generations. Some pecan trees can live for more than a century, and under good conditions, even much longer. So when you plant a pecan, you are not only planting for yourself. You are planting for people who may one day stand in the same shade and harvest food from the same branches. And that is the real lesson behind all 10 of these trees. A food legacy is not built in one season. It is built by changing the way you think. Instead of only buying food, you begin producing it. Instead of depending completely on fragile systems, you create living systems around your home. Mulberries, figs, apples, persimmons, chestnuts, carob, walnuts, oaks, pecans, and hazelnuts are more than plants. They are long-term security. You do not need a huge farm to begin. Start with one tree, then add another. Over time, a small yard can become a quiet source of food, shade, resilience, and independence. So which of these legacy trees would you plant first? Share your answer below, and subscribe for more practical ideas on building a self-sufficient future.